Understanding Disproportionate Minority Contact by Kaisha Dotson. Minority youth, especially African Americans, are treated unequally at every stage in the juvenile justice system. Youth of color, including African Americans, Hispanics, Asians, and Pacific Islanders, make up 1/3 of the adolescent population in the United States, but are 2/3 of incarcerated youth. African American youth are just 14% of the youth population. These are individuals under the age of 18 living in the United States. But 43% of boys in juvenile facilities are Black, and 34% of girls are Black. Disproportionate minority contact, which has been defined as a situation in which the minority proportion of juveniles detained or confined in secure detention facilities, secure correctional facilities, jails, and lockups exceeds the proportion of the group in the general population. The purpose of this research is to identify the different factors that influence or contribute to the disparities that African American youth experience in the juvenile justice system. This explanatory research studies identifies and describes the framework, procedures, and elements of the juvenile justice system and how these components affect the criminalization of African American youth. It determines the relationship between the identifying factors and the stated problem. This qualitative study gains a deeper understanding of a provider's perspective on the presented issues. This study was designed and completed over the course of the 2020 to 2021 school year. Fall semester consisted of gathering research and formulating the study, and spring semester is when the study was carried out over a 9 to 13-week period. The initial research began in fall 2020 and it was carried out in spring 2021. This is where the survey was created and formulated and where it was distributed to the participants and where data was collected and gathered and analyzed. A list of email addresses for school resource officers, juvenile court mediators, and local service providers was provided by a local agency. The email addresses for defense attorneys and social workers were gathered from online county websites. This sample was chosen based on their experience with working with youth in the juvenile justice system and their familiarity with disproportionate minority contact. Defense attorneys, school resource officers, juvenile court mediators, social workers, and local service providers are the 5 groups that were targeted for this survey. Pictured on the screen are the results of the participants who completed the survey. 4 attorneys, and the rest were local service providers. For the methods for this study, a survey consisting of both closed and open-ended questions was designed to be completed online, and the link to the survey was distributed via email. Potential survey respondents were sent a cover letter stating the focus and aims of the research project and the confidentiality terms prior to the distribution of the survey link. The survey took about 15 minutes and it was created to be completed via Google Forms. This study utilized the survey responses to gain a greater understanding of the relationship between disparities in the juvenile justice system and the rate of disproportionate minority contact. This study will analyze the perspective of, of providers. Pictured here are 2 graphs showing results from 2 questions asked on the survey. The first question asked participants how familiar they are with DMC. Another question asks how much do they think each of the following contributes to the disproportionate minority contact. And each participant had the opportunity to rate the factors from 1 to 5. The answers for all of the questions vary greatly. Participants also had some short answer questions. This question asks what policies, programs, or initiatives could be implemented in your county's district to reduce DMC. Participant 8 responded, less harsh sentencing and better follow-up post-hearings for individuals involved in the court, more widespread mental health programs and access to medication management, and more trust between providers and at-risk youth. This was an answer that they thought would be something that could be implemented to help reduce DMC that is not currently active. Another response states to remove school resource officers and substitute more social workers and therapists, increase educational requirements about racial inequality and implicit bias for not only police but also court appointed / elected officials, create more alternatives, diversion programs for youth who are system involved. This is a qualitative study, so making sure that I gathered a narrative from each participant was very imperative. Because there are limitations to every study, this study, because it was a survey, only had a 42% response rate. And also, there were only 11 participants. This was a very small sample size. Not enough participant demographic information was collected either. Only the occupation was collected, nothing else that was specific to each participant. Participants who were unfamiliar with DMC provided insufficient responses, which kind of limited the responses even more. Many local providers are unaware of the current policies, programs, or initiatives that have been implemented in their county/district to help reduce DMC. So it was very difficult for them to answer the questions of what could be implemented because they don't know what is already happening. Survey responses about what could be done to reduce DMC did align with the data and with the literature, but no specific steps were indicated for how this could be accomplished. In conclusion, the results of this study are consistent with previous studies alike. This study supports the conclusion that DMC does exist in Cincinnati, Ohio, and that is not solely the result of legal factors, but race / ethnicity, decision making, and others also are contributing factors. It is important for policymakers to consult with local providers in order to evaluate existing policies, programs, and initiatives, and to gain insight on their perspective. Thank you.